All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick. We're going to talk today Divisional Round, look ahead to Championship Sunday in the NFL, and then some quick thoughts on the national title game between Ohio State and Notre Dame. But let's start off with the Divisional Round, Drew. Which of these four teams left standing did you change your mind on most based on this weekend?
I think it's the Chiefs, and it's just the fact that Mahomes was able to throw a lot of what I said last week in my face about just being able to find another gear and be a bit of an absurd character out there. The over kind of arching vibe that I get from this week of football is obviously outside of the Lions. It was good to be home. It was good to have a little bit of a friendly whistle. But even more so, just it felt like the teams that were on the road were just much more prone to making the backbreaking mistakes that cost them opportunities to win games that were otherwise very winnable. The Texans, Rams, and Ravens all go home, I think, will feel very rueful of opportunities that were left on the field. And freshest in mind, because it just happened, is the Ravens game. I cannot believe the fumble that Mark Andrews, really the turnovers in general. The turnover fest that the Ravens exhibited was so uncharacteristic of them from this season. And it was like, well, bad time to have a bad time, given that you were up against a legit opponent, and bad time to drop a very catchable 2-point conversion that would have given everyone who cares about football the drama of seeing whether or not Josh Allen could drive for a field goal. Spoiler alert, he could have. But just in general, like the mistakes and the miscues and the, kind of tomfoolery from the road teams in those three contests was very clearly on display. And then the Lions just ran into the impossibly good Jaden Daniels. And if I have smart people in my life, yourself included, who is like, Jaden Daniels, he's the best quarterback in the NFC. That's what I'm seeing. That's what the numbers say. What are you seeing? I'm like, yeah, but he's never done this before. This is the NFL. Like, this is tough. This is, this takes years to be able to find your footing in this at this level. And no, it took him 5 minutes. He looks amazing, and he is able to carry this Commanders offense to the tune of, being able to outboat race the amazing Lions. It was a painful weekend for me betting. I will have some choice words if and when we meet Fairbairn for missing the points that would have gotten me my Texans cover. I will have some choice words if and when we meet Jake Elliott for missing that extra point that would have been the deciding point for me on the Eagles. Mark Andrews can go ahead and cancel any appearances he was expecting to make during Super Bowl week, because I don't think he wants to answer any questions about his role in the outcome of that Ravens-Bills game. But it's a bummer, because you don't want to come out of a weekend like this where the games were good and intense, and particularly from a betting standpoint, came down to the tiniest margins, and the things that we take away from these games are the mistakes that were made as opposed to like the good things that were done. And that's just the way it goes sometimes. And I don't know, the good things that were done were Pat Mahomes throwing, amazingly avoiding that sack and finding Travis Kelce for the touchdown that was ultimately the decider there for them, in my opinion. So you just gotta tip your cap.
I like the idea of you just walking up to Kaimi Fairbairn and calling him Fairbairn. So it's just some cross between a Brazilian soccer player with one name and Voldemort or something. Not Kaimi, only Fairbairn to me. Unfair man. That was brutal. Jake Elliott is the villain of the weekend for me with that 6.5. The terrible thing is that as Saquon is breaking that run, I'm thinking someone needs to tackle him, because this is the only way that the 7 is going, that the 6.5 is going down, is if Saquon takes it to the house and then all of a sudden it's just like a weird altered game state. Like then Elliott has to miss the PAT, or like he has to make it, and then they might have to stop the Rams with a prevent defense. Like it was just all a bit of a mess. And then in the end, they do not cover the 6.5, much to my chagrin. The Ravens won. That's a strange game because I don't, as high quality as it was, as compelling theater as it was, I really don't think there's any greater meaning to discern from that game outside of the fact that Mark Andrews just lost his mind on 2 different plays, and that's the reason. There's a lot of, I will say, everyone is going to remember Andrews from that game, and perhaps rightfully so, but a lot of people are going to get away with a lot of things out of that game because of Mark Andrews covering up a lot of sins. Lamar Jackson was horrific in the first half. He looked like he lost his head. Like it looked like he really didn't want to be out there. He's playing terribly. He looks skittish. And then to his credit, and it almost in a weird way makes his game even more impressive, the fact that that last drive, which was the biggest drive of his career, that he was a 10 out of 10, despite looking so bad before that. And the fact that he was able to find that, and not just the fact that they scored a touchdown, but the fact that they scored it, and that whole drive was just in kind of definitive seminal MVP Lamar Jackson fashion. So I don't know how to feel about Lamar coming out of that game, but I don't necessarily feel worse about him. And I certainly did midway through the third quarter. Speaking of Mark Andrews at the Super Bowl, I interviewed Mark Andrews at the Super Bowl 2 years ago in Phoenix. And he's a lovely guy, very quietly spoken, no ego that I could discern. So I feel terrible for him, but geez, he had a bad fourth quarter. And that is really the difference. What did you think of the Bills defense? Do you think that was really just a par performance, and they played really well against the run in the first half, and then they seemed to break against it, but they had enough cushion in the scoreline that they didn't really have to get exposed in the fourth quarter. And then ultimately, Lamar Jackson, he's got like Lamar, Allen, Mahomes, Burrow. You're just not going to stop them when they have 4 downs to work with in these situations. They're just too good. Jaden Daniels is in that as well now.
Yeah, I agree with that. And no, my Bills defense takeaway was, if you flip the venue here and this game was played in Baltimore, Baltimore probably wins like 41-13. Like that, I don't think that the Bills defense on the road is doing what they did in keeping Baltimore to 25 points. 25 points in quotations, because there was obviously a lot more points on the board outside of the just inexplicable turnovers for the Ravens and the boggled 2-point conversion at the end. But it was this Bills defense stopping Pat Mahomes feels like a fool's errand, honestly. And I know you have Bills futures. Are you going to get all the way off? Because I mean, you have enough Chiefs that you probably like feel good either way. But if you bring that level of effort onto the field in Arrowhead, you're in deep trouble. And I think actually, you know what, we buried the lead here. We should tip our hat to the great Jay Croucher for your call on the Travis Kelce receiving prop. I hope we find a good host for this show next year, because I'm sure Houston will come calling to hire you as a consultant so that they can have a game plan for the most important player on the field that's not Pat Mahomes. It felt like Houston literally was like, who's 87? Who's this guy? And I could not understand it. But if he's going to be able to create that type of synergy with Mahomes in the moments that matter the most, which is really, really what it boils down to, because it wasn't his speed or his athleticism that was creating opportunity. It was literally just like, he has enough reps with Mahomes and he is a smart enough player that he's like, you're going to move this way. I'll take this space. I'll take this space. Well, this space is vacated for me. And Mahomes knew kind of exactly predicted where he was going to go and when he was going to be there, and had touch passes to him. And he caught every one of them. And it was pretty special to see that relationship. And I honestly think that the Bills don't have an answer for that.
Yeah, well, I hope they do. I'm going to need the Bills. I don't think I have any Chiefs. My ledger, I'll have to go back and check. And if I do, it would be a minor amount in comparison to Buffalo. So I'll be all in Bills. this coming weekend. And yeah, I mean, I feel amazing about it, but the game is effectively, well, it's close to pick. It's Chiefs -1.5, and we can jump to that now. I think that the question marks are probably going to be about the health of the Bills defense between Taylor Rapp left the game. Teron Johnson got banged up. Looked like he was okay, though. He's trying to get back in on that final drive. But the Bills defense, I mean, I thought there was a chance that maybe this defense is just not very good and was going to get exposed by an elite offense in a similar way that Detroit's defense finally got exposed. Well, kind of got exposed again by Jaden Daniels, and they didn't. They didn't get eviscerated by Lamar Jackson. They didn't get eviscerated by Derrick Henry outside of the third quarter. So I feel that this is a pretty evenly matched game, and it's probably going to come down to a coin flip, and the coin tends to flip with Patrick Mahomes' head up in these situations. And I'm sure that Amari Cooper is going to drop a pivotal fourth down for me, but so it goes. I don't really think, I mean, it's funny with these playoff lines because for the most part, I think the right thing to do is to kind of defer to the millions and millions of dollars of liquidity in forming these lines, particularly when it's like Bills Chiefs or Bills Ravens, where there is a lot of data points about these teams that there is no real reason for these prices to be wrong. These playoffs, though, and while I do trust that the market is smarter than me, like, I don't understand where these power ratings are coming from for some of these teams. Like, so the Commanders were like got out to +10.5 at one point against Detroit. Now they're 5.5 against the Eagles. Like, it was that much of an adjustment. And I guess the 10.5 was just wrong, and it kind of closed more like 9. But still, the Commanders, right? Like, this team was like +3 against the Bucks, and now they're +5.5 against the Eagles. Like, just seems like their rating has bounced around a ton. I don't understand how the Texans are rated. Like, everyone just thinks that the Texans are absolute garbage. I felt like the Texans played the Chiefs pretty close, and it was. I don't understand.
There's a world they win that game.
Yeah. And look, I could say, I didn't understand the +8.5, the +9. Well, people who back -8.5, they won their bets, even if I didn't understand it. And it felt like the Texans, on balance of play, should have kept that closer. Again, I don't understand how the Eagles opened only 4.5-point favorites over the Commanders. I get that Jane Daniels is amazing, but he's been amazing this whole season. And the Commanders' offense has been amazing all season. Their defense is terrible. And the only reason they got out alive, giving up 1 million points to Detroit anyway, is that Detroit turned the ball over multiple times. So I suspect that if Hurts is right, then the Commanders' offense is going to look a lot closer to the way that it did against Tampa Bay, and the defense is just going to get destroyed by Philadelphia. But what did you think of the openers for both of these games?
We can basically stop the handicap for Commanders Eagles at Hurts availability and health. There is a long history now of him getting some eyebrow raising shots and then not being available. There were a couple of games that were of huge consequence where the market took an absolute beating with not even inside information, but just speculative information that Hurts wasn't going to go or wasn't going to be sharp. And so I think the fact that this opened low is a little bit of a hat tip to that, where I'm not saying that we're going to get some sort of surprise news this week that Hurts he's going in for another MRI, right? Like, that's not coming, I don't think. But the idea of him missing practice, I think, is real. And I think the idea that people look at his quality of play, in particular his ability to throw the ball, compounded with additional injuries speculation, and just kind of assume that, like, okay, I'll take my chances with the dog here against the quarterback who can't throw. Let's do it. Like, I saw Jaden Daniels throw some balls in Detroit. His arm looks good. Hurts, not so much. And so I think the just general sentiment of why can't us that is vibing around Washington right now is explaining sort of why this is a shortish price. I had intended to take Commanders if I got a 6. I had intended to lay Eagles if we got a 3.5. The fact that it's 4.5, 5, I don't know how I'm going to find a bet in this game. And ultimately, I may just have a small stake in Commanders money line because you know why, Jay? Because Dan Quinn knows how to call a football game. That guy knows. He knows. And I will tell you, when I was watching the Commanders Lions and they had a small lead in the second quarter, I was on with our friend, Rob Pizzola. We were watching live and he was like, man, the Commanders really need a long drive here and like eat some clock and not give the Lions the football back. And I thought the opposite. I was like, no, like keep firing, keep this pace up, keep the rhythm going, right? Like keep your offense in stride and put the onus on Goff, make him pumpkin. And ultimately, I think Dan Quinn felt the same. He was like, I'm not going to ask my offense to do something different than they've been doing to this point. Like, keep making explosive plays. Let's keep taking shots downfield. We'll get their cornerbacks for DPI. We'll get, completed passes that, move us into range to continue to score. And I think that was masterfully important when you're up against a, opponent who, kind of has that mentality. And like the fact that Dan Quinn has prepared for this Eagles team twice and competed well while not covering in game one and competed well in winning in game two has me somewhat Commanders curious this week.
Commanders curious. Yeah, very risque. I just think it's very difficult to have a strong opinion about this game without knowing what Jalen Hurts is going to look like on the first drive. Because, I mean, like what the reporting or the speculation is that it's like PCL sprain-ish. So it doesn't sound great.
I mean, good.
He wasn't like, from what I saw, it's not like he was, actively like really lit. Like he still looked kind of normal-ish when he was rolling out to throw. So we'll see. We'll see what he does there. I know there was some reluctance with the tush push, perhaps because of the knee. But ultimately, I think my guess, the way that this game is going to go is that the defining unit is going to be Philadelphia's defense. But we will see. And Jaden Daniels is the better quarterback in the matchup. He's the better quarterback by margin. Jalen Hurts, again, even before the injury, he got exposed in this game where he just doesn't feel pressure. And he doesn't have a lot of complexity or diversity to the throws that he makes. He just wants to throw go balls to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and scramble. And I just don't think he is close to the level of the other three quarterbacks remaining. That being said, his supporting roster is better than all the other three teams, perhaps by margin. So they can absolutely win the Super Bowl, certainly. They are the most likely team to win the Super Bowl because they get to play Washington while Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes have to play each other. But I do suspect that there is going to be an undoing for Jalen Hurts at some time where it's probably not going to be against Marshawn Lattimore and the Commanders' defense, but could be. Because I think he could just implode in any given game because he has not looked great this entire season. But I suspect that it's more likely to come in the Super Bowl, be it a rematch against Mahomes or against Josh Allen. But we'll see. Okay, watch the biggest names in sports talk, including Mike Florio, Dan Patrick, Dan Lebitard, and Matthew Berry, as they cover the biggest moments on and off the field each weekday on the NBC Sports Now channel. It's available on Peacock and free on most streaming platforms. Learn more at nbcsports.com/now.
As you all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up to BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE, and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code BETEDGE. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your first bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code BETEDGE when you sign up. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE and get your $1,500 first bet offer today.
Just sending some people who I know bet the Ravens some photos of me and Mark Andrews from Phoenix to just pour some salt in the wound. One of my better bits. Not really. No, great bit. Anyway, let's talk about Ohio State Notre Dame. The Buckeyes, naturally, 8.5-point favorites in this one. The total is 45.5. Drew, do you have an interest in this game?
I do. Go Irish. I am writing very what's the right word? Spontaneous. I took a spontaneous position on the Irish once we kind of got a sense that Beck for Georgia, the QB, was going to miss that game in the semifinals. It was like, or quarterfinals, I guess. And it's like, oh man, like the path just opened wide up here for the Irish. They got to beat Indiana, a limited Georgia, and whoever comes out of PSU, BSU. Like, oh yeah, this team's going to the finals, and they should get upgraded along the way. And I've watched them along the way, and I've been impressed by like the moxie. And I've been impressed by the coaching. Freeman is my guy. Riley is my guy. Former Duke quarterback, by the way, for those of you who are Duke football heads out there, like yours truly. But yeah, the Notre Dame squad, I think, is live here. And the 8.5-point spread is disrespectful to a team that is playing as well as anyone in the country. They're here. And Ohio State has been like completely wildly upgraded over that Oregon victory. And it's just like, okay, like, yeah, you beat the number one team. You had the right approach that day, and you showed up, and you were live, and you were fresh, and you were sharp, and they were not. And I don't agree at all that Ohio State's upgrade they got that carried into the Texas game that ultimately rewarded anyone who laid the points with Ohio State. I think all of that is smoke. And so I think this is going to be a competitive game that is decided by under a touchdown. And so give me the points with Notre Dame on top of my already standing Notre Dame future. And ultimately, like, I don't mind going against Ryan Day in a championship game at all. I don't mind being on the side of Freeman in a championship game at all. And I think ultimately this is going to come down to final moments. And I think the total is low. I would have made this in the 50s. So there are a lot of very, very, very sharp college football handicappers out there. If you didn't know, it's easier to make a living as a professional betting college than it is pro football, not just because the sides are softer and the information is more readily available to pros, but because there are more games. And so for these reasons, like, I don't tend to get heavily involved in college football markets, but we are full on go Irish go. And yeah, let's get it done for the Golden Domers.
Okay. Yeah, Ryan Day would be in the top 8 of men who have cost me the most money in my life over the journey. So I don't have any interest in this game, but I will be cheering for your uprising and his philosophical demise.
Onward to victory, as they say, Jay.
Yeah, indeed. All right, before we get out of here, quickly, Drew, Djokovic, Alcaraz. Alcaraz seeing us a minus 205 type of favorite, Djokovic plus 170 range. Do you have a bet on this one?
We have two favorites on the bottom half of the draw on the men's side that I have value on the favorite. I make Alcaraz minus 360. I make Zverev minus 433. I think there is a way to, if you don't already have a healthy amount of Alcaraz exposure, which I do from a futures standpoint, from a Q3 standpoint, then I think he makes a fine parlay piece. I think he comes through this 3-0, 3-1. The people who have kind of really come to support Djokovic in the market, I don't understand their handicap here. I've heard it. I've seen it. I know the people who are betting this, yeah, like there's a little bit of a you know, Djokovic's last stand kind of thing, because this is his court. Like this is his arena. Like he owns Rod Laver. He has the most titles there of any man on earth, and he did beat Alcaraz head to head at the for the gold medal, which hurt me personally. But I think this is Alcaraz pretty cleanly, and I think Zverev comes through pretty cleanly, and I think those two make nice parlay legs. And/or I would lay 1.5 sets with both as well. I see value there, and that's actually a better price if you're trying to avoid laying massive juice. So, the whole men's draw right now looks wildly chalky. Q2, the only one that there's some drama, and I'm hopeful that young Ben Shelton comes through Q2, as I have a weird old price that he would be among the final four here. So that would be fun for me. But otherwise, it's been a pretty predictable Aussie so far.
Okay. Alcaraz Zverev parlay will get you about even money. Djokovic in the middle of a feud against Tony Jones, Channel 9 commentator, who made a pretty mediocre gag at Novak's expense, and Novak did not like it, and so he's not talking to the media as a result. So maybe he'll picture Tony Jones's face on Alcaraz as he tries to move past those demons and defeat both of those men. I will need the chalk, Drew, and needs Zverev to triumph. Might even be a wake up in the middle of the night type operation to see Sasha home. Great guy to wake up in the middle of the night to cheer, let me tell you. So hopefully that does get through. But yeah, looks like we're headed for chalk again. Best of 5 men's tennis. Best players tend to win, particularly when you've got two at the top who seem a tier above everyone else at the moment, but noted on the Alcaraz Zverev even money parlay. Okay, we are done for today. Don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those of you watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel, and if you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. Also, a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. For myself and Drew, we will see you soon.